Welcome to Muslims Doing Things, a podcast about extraordinary Muslims and their career journeys. And I'm very excited about today's episode because we've been trying to schedule it forever, but then I took a hiatus and I came back and messaged Zain right away to say we have to record the podcast. So Zain, welcome.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here, Layla.
So you are a TikTok megastar at the very least, but I'm not going to introduce you because I always have my guests introduce themselves. So tell me about yourself.
I think a couple years ago, I would have said something totally different, but today I'm going to say that I'm Zain, an actress who does content creating, who is a mother as well. That's what I would say.
You know, that's why I'm always careful to tell people what they are, especially with women, right? Like typically a lot of the women I speak to on the show are so multidimensional and like do all these things and it evolves, right? And you particularly, and we'll get into this because you have a creative career, you have a choice every day to make, which is like, who do I want to be creatively and how do I want to present myself? So anyways, my dear, let's start way back. The audience may or may not know this. I've known you since the beginning of time. So I may be able to tell some of this story, but I'll let you tell it. Where were you born?
I was born in Kuwait, believe it or not, but we came to the US when I was like 2 years old. So all I've known is pretty much Los Angeles, California, Downey to be specific, because that's where I was pretty much raised. And I went to elementary school there, middle school, high school. I've known you since you were like, what, 5 or so? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
I've known
that sounds right.
Yeah. We went to the same masjid as kids.
We went to the same masjid as kids, and we were a part of the generation of Iraqis specifically who came before a lot of the wars. Yes. So, at least early on, I think a lot of Iraqis immigrated later, but there was a core community of people who have just been here since the dawn of time. And Zain is in that community and I'm in that community. So I've known her since forever. And growing up, you were always very funny, right? Like, yes, you've always been very funny. Would you agree with that?
You know what? I think when I was younger, I was a little more scared to showcase my funny side because of culture and society and my parents. But I always was the funny, loud girl. Yeah.
Yeah, I recall you being hysterical, and you aren't wrong. Like our community is, I think that our parents are different. Like I think your parents are different. I think my parents are different. Yeah. But at a broader level, the Iraqi community does tend to be a bit conservative. So you're not wrong. Correct. There's definitely a concept of like arab, which is like a word I refuse to use with my kids, but that's another story. Yeah. So you're going to school in LA. How did you think life would shape up? Like where did you think your humor was going to take you somewhere, or were you planning for other things?
No, I kind of thought I was going to do exactly what my parents expected me to do because I was the good Iraqi girl, you know? Everyone was like, Zainab is so sweet. I used to go by Zainab at that time. Zainab is so sweet. Zainab is so kind. She's the perfect daughter, you know? And I always tried to implement that every single day of my life because I wanted my parents to be proud of me, to show people, look what a wonderful daughter I have. You know, she's wonderful. She's great. She's educated. And now look, she's married. And now look, she's got kids. And yeah, she has a small career on the side. And I kind of thought, that's what I was going to do. And can we cuss on this show? I'm thinking no, but I was, I was freaking scared. I'm just going to say that. I was so hella scared that was the life I was going to have. But at the same time, I was trying to tell myself that it was okay.
You know, it's funny because I do recall there are a few girls in our community who got married very young. You're one of them. You were probably early 20s?
23, 24.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So it's interesting. At that point, you figured, okay, I'm going to live a nice, married an awesome guy, love your husband, married a good guy, going to have some good kids and just raise these kids. And that was kind of where you'd hope to take life.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was the plan in the beginning. And I was trying to grapple with it for a very long time. And I think what I was so lucky in one aspect of my life that made me so happy is I had a husband who didn't want that for me. And when he said that I want you to be you and to do what you want to do, which is really sad because I shouldn't have to have my partner say that. I should feel that way within myself internally as as in my own home human being. But just hearing that from him truly kind of changed my perspective.
And how far along in your marriage does this happen? Because as somebody with young kids now, that's an easy thing to say when you're two young bucks without any kids. But when you're like, you and I were just talking about how I spent a week at home with COVID with kids running around, how it's just like a total crazy den in here. But when did that like happen? Or did he say it from jump?
It was from the beginning. He was always like, live your authentic life, live your authentic life. And I think I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. I am living my authentic life. Look at me. Like I'm doing what I want to do. I'm not doing my, but at the same time, I knew he was right. I wasn't. And I think once I had my two children, I have a boy and a girl. I had them when I was 27 and 30, like around there. Right after that, I stayed a couple of years home with them. I stayed home for about I don't want to say it, like a couple good years, like 3 years. And then I realized, screw it. I want to do what I want to do. I want to be who I want to be. And a big part of that was a move that we did to Kuwait. My husband got this awesome job in Kuwait. He had a great opportunity, and we went over there and we lived there for about a year. And I was away from everybody. I was away from the community. I was away from the society that I've known my whole life. I was away from my parents, who I love dearly. And I was really able to be myself. And I realized, oh my God, people love the real me, you know? Because I think this whole time I was scared to showcase who I really am because I'm scared of people not liking me. And I realized, wow, people really like the real me. And if they don't, screw it. I don't care. You know what? This is who I am. And I think that move to Kuwait really impacted that.
And so when you come back from Kuwait, were you like, I'm going to make a career out of my personality?
When I come back from Kuwait, I said, I'm going to change my life. I remember reaching out to people that I always, when I was younger, wanted to befriend, but always felt like I couldn't because I felt like I was stuck in a box, you know, a certain box, and they were in a whole different dimension. And I couldn't even reach them. So when I came back from Kuwait, I remember I sent an email. I don't think she'll mind if I say her name, Mervet. Do you know Mervet?
Yeah, of
I've
course.
always I always tell this story to her. I always loved Mervet and I loved her attitude and I love how open and funny she is. So I remember sending her an email saying, "Hi, Mervet, it's me, Zainab, and I just wanted to connect with you. And I really wanted to. I've always wanted to kind of hang out with you, but I was always too scared. But how about we grab some coffee or something?" And she was so open to it. And we've been friends since then. But I think there's like certain people that I picked at that I was like, these are the people I want in my life. Because as they always say, your tribe is your vibe, right? And so I wanted a whole new vibe when I come back. I wanted to be me. And these people to me represented that at the time. Of course, times have changed. We always change. And I think with that, our friends change as well. I still freaking love Mervat, but I'm saying like we add different kinds of people who implement different aspects into our lives that really create who we are now. So it's and I've been able to see that. I think before I was like, I'm stuck with these friends because these are the friends I grew up with. I'm stuck with this society because this is a society, this culture. And I was able to see like, oh no, I can play around with this. I can be whoever I want to be, and these people help create this individual by being around them.
Well, it's also like funny because you're talking. I mean, I don't know if it's funny or if it's terrible or what it is, but you're talking about how you were self conscious to reach out to people. And then it was easy to reach out to people. And now your friends have evolved, but you've also developed a very big social media presence, right? It's no surprise that when somebody develops a little bit of acknowledgement at a public level, folks start creeping back in. The people who didn't want to grab coffee with Zain or, Zainab when you were a kid, the artist formerly known as Zainab, now
Oh,
suddenly
I
are like,
like
hey,
that.
what's up? Right.
Yeah, very true. Very true. People who I always thought were like super cool and untouchable for me because I always felt like I was the not cool kid, by the way. I wasn't like, you know, I didn't have the coolest clothes. My mom dressed me. I didn't watch the cool. I remember the first time I went to the movie theaters was with you. Do you
What
not
did we
know that?
watch? I've been to so few movies in my life. What did we watch? I bet I remember it.
Okay, 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 okay. It was at Susu's birthday. Do you remember Susu? I
I
was
love a
so
susu.
I freaking love Susu. I was so excited she invited me because I felt like I was so not cool, but I got invited to her birthday and I was like, oh my God, Susu's invited me to her birthday. And then we went to her house and she was like, what if we go to the movie theaters? And I freaked out because I was like, this is my first time going to the movie theaters. Oh my God, so cool with Susu and everybody. And we watched coming something about out. It was like the first big movie about like that talked about the LGBTQ community. Like that's so funny, but that was like the first big kind of movie. It was about this guy who came out to his family. Shoot, do you remember it?
Does not even ring a bell. And I've seen like literally I can count on my hands the amount of movies I've seen in the theater.
Dude, it was in the 90s. I don't blame you. It was in the
I
90s.
remember
And
we
you're
went. I
younger than
remember they were really good friends with Jessica Alba, so we went to go see that Jessica Alba movie when it first came out with Drew Barrymore. Again, like I'm the worst pop culture person. I remember
no, not
that
that one. Not that one. No, but
about
I'll
baseball or
message
something.
you.
Yeah, you have to. You know what's so funny? I don't know if it's funny, but it's like sad. Like I wish I knew what you're telling me 30 years ago because I looked up to you. Like I always thought you were hilarious. You were like funny. Like so, it's so wild hearing this perspective you had of yourself.
Really?
Oh my gosh, yeah, are you kidding me? And like, my mom, our birthday parties were like freaking town hall meetings. She invited anybody. She sat next to somebody on a plane, they would be there. So you were like always every single there's 6 of us. Whoever had a birthday party, you were there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's so wild to hear this perspective, but it actually makes me think of your kids and my kids and children who may internalize these feelings, right? Like our kids now, are they feeling these things that maybe you were able to overcome these perceptions you had of yourself clearly, as we'll kind of discuss and move forward throughout this conversation on, but not everybody can, right? You were able to say, okay, I didn't think highly of myself. Now I do. F it. I'm Zain.
Yeah, exactly. F it. I'm not Zainab. I'm Zain. This is who I used to be Zainab, that girl, but that was me long time ago, and I kind of killed her, and that's okay. And I'm all right with that. I'm happy to be Zain. Zain is the person that I inspired to be, that I worked really hard on being, and I'm very comfortable with her. And she's growing all the time. She learns new things. She's not perfect. She learns new things every single freaking day, but I'm comfortable walking hand in hand with Zain. With Zainab, I was not.
Is that why you did the name change? Is it like a legal name change? Just like
No,
a,
it's not a legal name change.
alias?
It's not a legal name change. No, it's just when I hear Zainab, I backtrack to that person and who
Huh.
she. And when I hear Zain, I'm like, yes, this is a powerful woman. This is a woman who encompasses everything I've ever wanted and ever dreamt of in someone I would look up to. When I think of Zainab, I think of somebody who really was trying but was scared. And sometimes it's okay to say, hey, I killed that aspect of myself, and now
Yeah.
I'm this person, and now I'm growing and I'm learning, and maybe I don't know, 10 years from now I'll be Zainab again. I'll be able to hold her, be able to reconnect with her. But right now, I'm comfortable with where I am.
And so you come back from Kuwait, you have coffee with Mervet, you are like, I am going to figure something out. Did you know immediately, Zane, that you were going to become an actress or a comedian? Or were you like, let me just throw a
No,
bunch of things at the wall?
no. One of the things I did is right after I gave birth with my kids, I stayed home with them. When my daughter was about 3 or 4, I remember going to Target. Okay. And I saw a lady wearing a Disney costume. And I looked at her and I said, that's so cool. You work at Disney, you
That's
wear costumes.
right. I know where
It's
this is headed.
I was like, that's so cool. You work at Disney, you guys get to wear costumes. And I love the idea of make believe. I was always that kid that had a mega imagination. So she was like, yeah. I was like, how do you get a job like that? She's like, just apply. I literally went home, and the new person that I was becoming was going to say yes to everything. And that's the person I am now. And that's one thing I could tell your audience is say yes to everything. That fear is all in your head. And once you do it, oh my God, it's so gratifying. But anyway, so I went home, I applied. The next day, I get an email saying, hey, we'd like to interview you, which is so random because usually they're not that quick. I was like, okay, all right. The day after that, I go for an interview at Disney and they're like, we freaking love you. You've got the job. And I was like, oh my God. I work at, it's not a big job, but I was like a ticket taker at Disneyland. Okay. I took tickets. I got paid $9 something an hour. All right. But I was excited because it was like, I didn't, for me, it wasn't about the money at that time. My husband was doing good, so we're fine. For me, it was about doing something I enjoyed. And I was like, I get to be in this make believe world and, connect with these people and do this. So I love that job, you know? And then about three months into that job, you're able to transition at Disney after 3 months. And so my dream job at Disney was to be Daisy Duck. Like I wanted to be a character. Yeah, I wanted to live my life through Daisy Duck, through Donald, Mickey, Minnie. And so I found out there were auditions and I went to those damn auditions and I kicked ass. All right.
How
I
do you,
kicked,
how do you, how? Like, I tactically, what did you have to do to kick ass as a duck?
oh my, okay. So, okay, you go through some sort of rigorous kind of, not a competition, but like qualifications of where they ask you a couple questions. But the best part, the one where I tell you I kick butt, was they tell you to do the walk, the Daisy Duck walk. Okay. And okay, I'm not tooting my own horn, Layla. Okay, but I saw some of those people walk and they were mediocre. They had a little bit of fear. This person that I was becoming, Zain, had no freaking fear. All right. She was like, I'm going to waddle like I can waddle. So I got out there. I did that walk and I was like, I got this. There's no way I don't have this job. And then I get cut. And I go to my car and
What?
I'm crying. I know. I go to my car and I'm crying. I go home and I'm like, screw it. I was the best. So I called the manager at the entertainment department. Yeah, I was like, I
I
was.
already love where this is headed because I have a theory which I'll share with you after this. But anyhow,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was like,
No,
oh
no, tell
god.
me the story because you're going to prove my theory. I need you to prove it before
Okay.
I share it.
I was like, I was amazing. Screw it. I'm calling. And I worked at Disney, so I knew the numbers. I knew how to get them, right? So I called the manager and he was there at the auditions, I remember. And I said, he said, of course I remember you. You were great. And I said, well, what the hell? I was so good. Why not? Why am I not in that costume? He's like, without telling you so much, there are certain reasons we have to cut certain people. Later on, I figured out why, which I will tell you. Because like, oh, let me explain. So then he goes, but next week we have another audition and I want you to come. And I said, what's that audition? He's like, to be an entertainment host, which is the ones who takes care of all the characters. We make sure they're out on time. We make sure their costumes look good. We make sure, everything's great with them. And so I was like, no, I wanted to be a character. What is this entertainment host? And that plays a lot in my life. I realized that I want to achieve something, but then I kind of don't. And someone pushes me to do something else, which is even more freaking awesome. And I didn't even realize it. So he's like, please just try. And I was like, okay. So I went, of course, I got that. I got that part. And I ended up realizing being an entertainment host, why I didn't get the part of Daisy Duck without like being too graphic with people is that okay, the characters at Disney, when they're fitting their costumes, they have to fit through 3 rings, one in the breast area, one in the belly area, one near the buttocks. And if you don't fit in those rings, you cannot be those characters. And almost all Mickey, Minnie, Daisy, and Donald are pretty much always female, and they're pretty much stick figures in there. Okay. They cannot have my friend, I will tell you, she gained a little bit of weight and could no longer play Minnie. Like,
Wow.
literally, she probably gained like 5 pounds, and they told her, you cannot fit in that ring on the top, so you can't play Minnie anymore. So there is a weight limit. And they don't tell you that because they're not supposed to say that, like, oh, certain weights can't play a certain character. They kind of just give you a height in the beginning. You have to be this height. So it was like, you have to be this height. And I was like, all right, I got the height down and I got the waddle down. Why not? And then I realized, oh, I can't, I can't fit in those rings. But, anyways, I was so happy I never did that. I had a great time being an entertainment host. But that's how I really got into comedy was because of that. Everybody that I worked with was like, you need to do stand up comedy. You're so freaking funny. Like they would say that all the time. And it was these random people like you. If you told me that, I'd be like, oh, of course, Layla loves me. I've grown up with her my whole life. She's going to say that. But these random people who played Mickey and Minnie and all the princesses like would be laughing at my jokes. They're like, Zain, you got to do stand up. And I was like, I got to do stand up. Okay, I'll do stand up. So that's when I was saying yes to everything. And then there's a funny story to that as well of how I started off like doing my first stand-up show, which is pretty much my yes, okay, let me do it. And yes, okay, I applied right away and I got an answer right away. So
And you just went on stage and said Bismillah.
I mean, the thing is like I went online. I was like, all right, I'll be a stand-up comedian. I typed up Muslim stand-up, female stand-up comedian. I found an opening, which is so random that never happens. It was in Long Beach, with that never happens, but it's like the stars collided, you know, it was like kismet. And I sent a message saying, hi, I'm a stand-up comedian. I was not, I've never been on stage, Layla, at all in my life. And I was like, I'm a stand-up comedian. Yeah, I'll take this job if you want. So he literally messages me that night and says, can we meet up tomorrow in Long Beach? And I was like, okay. So we meet up, we start talking. He's like, you're so funny. How long have you been doing stand-up? I was like, well, I haven't really done professional stand-up. I've never even done an open mic, but I think I could do it. And then he had faith in me. He was like, I think you can do it too. And so I did two private shows with him. And then this first one I did okay. The second one I did really good, and that's kind of where I started to go viral.
You know, it's fascinating because you mentioned two things. The first one was that scary phone call you made when you were rejected as the duck,
Yeah.
where you effectively told the guy, like, I believe in myself. I'm not sure why you don't believe in
Yeah.
me. And the second thing was you effectively faked it until you made it in stand up and you said, I don't care what these qualifications say, like I'm just going to apply. And what I find like in a very different world, but very similar is when we're like hiring people, people who follow up after interviews and have that like self-determination, especially when they don't hear what they want, and people who just step up to the plate and were like, I can figure it out, those
Yeah.
qualities, regardless of profession or what you do, will literally give you like take you leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else. Because the next time there's a job opening, not unlike this host position, the next time there's a job opening, you're like, oh man, that person who like literally has the thickest skin and is so self-aware, hold on, let me pull their number up. And I think people don't realize that because they get so deflated by rejection and they think that rejection is personal. When often rejection isn't personal. Rejection is a very quick split decision based on the size of a ring, right? And you know, to make an analogy for the sake of kind of explaining the point.
And that's what happened. It was based on a size, you know, the size of rings for me. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you were the perfect duck. And so you're doing stand up, you're an entertainment host. You're happy being the entertainment host. And why'd you leave Disney? Was it because you started to do more work in stand up? Is it because the hours weren't making
Yeah.
sense?
No, because I started to do more work in stand up and I started to, well, actually, how I got into acting was that I started getting acting jobs from students who were here. A lot of them were foreign students from Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and they would see my stand up and they're like, we have a role for you. And I would be like, no, I'm not an actress. And then I thought to myself, I wasn't a stand up comedian either. I mean, why not? So they actually, I had this one girl named was Diana, and she pressured me so much that I was like, fine, okay, I'll take this role. All right. But girl, I'm not an actress. I've never acted in my life. So I did it. And I realized that's my calling, is that it's, and I think that's why I wanted to be Daisy Duck. I wanted to play a role. And I never realized that, I never connected the dots. Oh my God, that's what I've always wanted to do, was acting. I've always wanted to pretend to be this person, you know, that I could never be in real life, you know? And so I started acting and I started doing that so much that I had to quit my job at Disney and I started doing stand up. I don't do stand up as much anymore because I just felt like it wasn't fulfilling me or making me happy. And I feel like a lot of stand up comedians are not going to like this, but it's 100% true. Everybody and their grandma's doing stand up now. It's like everyone I meet, hi, I do stand up. And I'm like, that's great. So I was all like, you know what? It's not an avenue I wanted to venture in. I'll be frank with you, Layla. I am very funny. I think that what makes me funny on stage is I'm kind of like a Kevin Hart. You've never seen me, right? So I'm really like loud and I move around and I do like all these movements. But I think my material was okay. Like if you listen to Kevin Hart, his material is okay. It's just stories about his family or something. It's all about his delivery. And for me, it was all about my delivery too. And I think that's what kept me going and kept me. And also, I was an oddball out there on stage. You know, I would come up on stage and I'm like, "What's up?" And they were like, "What the hell is this 4'11" chubby little hijabi screaming about?" You know. And so white people loved me. Let me tell you that. Everyone loved me. Honestly, if I want to play at the Laugh Factory tonight, I could. But it's just, it wasn't bringing me joy, you know? And then I realized, why do I have to do this? And it was for my children. My kids are like, you always stress before your stand-up shows. Why? Like, isn't this something you love? And I was like, that's so true. It's something I love. Why am I stressing so much about it? And then I realized, that's not what I want to do. But like before I have, like I filmed this whole big movie called Pomegranate in Michigan. And not one day was I stressed. Every day I came to work. We had so much work. The environment wasn't what I would have hoped for. We, had so many hurdles, but I didn't care. I was so happy. Every freaking day I was so happy. And that's when I think that this is the path that you've meant to lead. Even when all life throws all these hurdles at you, you're still like, dude, I'm still so happy to be here. And I think that's what really got me into acting and why I love it and why I hope to succeed in it.
And it seems like this is a bit of you started with saying you started your career a bit late, but at this point you're transitioning your career. And I'm assuming you're probably mid-30s at this point because you're saying your kids are talking. So is that a fair assumption that you're around that position or place in life,
I
right?
just turned 40 and it's scary because I feel like
Yeah.
I am old. I feel like sometimes I feel like I wish I had done this when I was younger. And then my husband keeps reminding me of like other people who did it when they were much older, that everybody in their due time. And he always tells me, what's that guy's name? The KFC guy? I forgot it. The Colonel. He always says like he started when he was like 60 or 70. I'm like, okay, I got it. Hopefully I won't get my first Golden Globe when I'm like 70 years old, but hell, you never know. But yeah, it is kind of scary that I'm starting when I'm older, but at the same time, I love the place that I'm in and I love how I've grown. And I think that Zainab would not have been able to do this where Zain can.
Huh. And how did you teach yourself? So like you start this probably like in your earlier mid-30s, and you're first doing stand up and then you're doing acting, and these are like skill sets, right? And like some of it is natural, yes, you're right. But are
Yes,
you studying day and night? Are you watching YouTube? Like how did you become good at it
I
outside
am
of nature?
studying. Of course, I do study. I mean, that's important constantly. I took improv classes, which I thought was very important. I loved very much. I've taken acting classes. I study online. I constantly, you know what? The thing is like a lot of people are kind of, they think too much of themselves. So they say no to certain jobs. I never said no to any jobs. I took a bunch of free jobs. I still take a bunch of free jobs. I just took a free job where I did acting and I have like over 1 million followers and people think I should be getting paid millions. I take a lot of free work on because it builds my character and it helps me as an actress, as well. And so I do a lot of that. Yeah, constantly, all the time, all the time. I remember I took on a theater play that was about 2 hours from my house. I would drive twice a week there just because I felt like it was important to learn that skill set. It was, I did it for free. So I would drive 2 hours, 2 hours back because I felt like I've never done acting in a theater. And that's so important to be under that pressure as an actress to learn that. So yeah, constantly growing. Like you have to be.
It's interesting that you're looking at work as a way to grow, which it absolutely is.
Yes.
Especially because in social media right now, so on TikTok, especially, TikTok is full of Gen Z and they love transparency. And there's a big thing right now around salary transparency. So creators who make different amounts of money with 10,000 followers or 1 million followers say what they make. And there's like this focus on pay me what I'm worth, right? And this is in relationship to like TikTok deals. But I think there is a little bit of the pay me in knowledge that is missing. I would say generationally, that humility to say like I don't really know about theater. You could throw me on a stage and I'm gonna figure it out. I won't be free for very long, but it'll come with my mistakes. And I think that that's something that I admire. But it seems like you also have just been on this like endless journey for growth recently. That's kind of been your thing.
Yeah, 100%. I realize that that's what I thirst for is growth. I think people thirst for success, which is so, yeah, that's important to me as well. But you can't get that without growth, without knowledge, without making mistakes, without saying yes to everything, which is what I'm constantly trying to tell people all the time through my social media, is that you need to learn to love yourself. You need to learn to be okay with yourself, to be able to say yes all the time to all this stuff. And you're talking about money and social media. I have a big platform. I don't make crap on that platform. I think TikTok, I believe I've made maybe $400 and I have 1.2 million.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Instagram, I've made more. I've made maybe about 10 grand on Instagram, but I've got quite a big following. Now, with that being said, I don't reach out to sponsors because that's not my goal. I was recently hanging out with one of the biggest Arab content creators. And I can say her name. Her name is May. So I freaking love May. She's one of my best friends. And so when she told me to do her podcast, I said, "Hey, I'm going to come fly out to you because I want to learn from you." And she was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, come on over." So I flew out to her, not only to do her podcast, but I really wanted to learn from her. I wanted to sit in her essence and see what this is about and see if like content creating is what I want to do, because that's kind of the path that I've been taking, right? And we talked a lot, and her goal is amazing. And she's achieving that goal. She's working so freaking hard to be this big content creator. But I realized we're so different that yeah, I do content creation, but I do it because it helps me grow as an actress. And my goal is to be an actress. Is not to make her goal, she needs to make the money there in her content creation, right? Because that's her job, that's her dream. That's not mine, you know? Mine, okay, I want to be an actress. Let me make the millions in my acting, even though I could give two shits about the money, but it's like that's where I want to be. So that's kind of why I, every time I tell people I haven't made a lot of money off this, they're always shocked because I'm a dude. One guy called my dad and he was all like, "I heard your daughter's a multimillionaire because she's on Instagram and TikTok now. Everybody says she's a multimillionaire." My dad's like, "Well, I didn't hear she's a multimillionaire." So I was like, "No, I don't make any money." I think people have that perception because there are people who live like that. But they work hard to live like that. They do content creating all the time. They go and reach out to sponsors. They work freaking hard. Yeah. Me, not so much. I'll put up a camera to my face and I'll say what I want, and I'm very real to the camera. But I kind of just put it out there and say, inshallah, this goes well. Ma salama. That's it.
And you're totally right. Like it is a focus, right? Like people who create content, it's a job. They're recording all day. They're editing things all day. They have to like manage,
Okay.
negotiate contracts. And it's a focus. It's an area of focus, which means that you're not focusing on something else, or it's at the cost of something else. So I think that's really good perspective that not a lot of people hear about. When you got on TikTok, I think it was around COVID, right? Like that was kind of the.
No, it was before COVID. It was before COVID.
And
And
how did that journey go? Yeah, how did that take off? Like, what was your idea there?
so I
Did
don't know if you
one
remember.
was it a few videos that got you 2 million, or was it being super consistent over time? Like tell us all about it.
So I have my mentor. He's my comedy mentor. I think everybody in comedy has a mentor, stand-up comedian. Mine is Tehran. I don't know if you know him. Um,
Yeah, I've heard of
Tehran,
him, definitely. Yeah.
he's my big brother, one of my best friends. I always reach out to him. And he was on my butt. This is way before, not way before COVID, but before COVID. Zain, put videos out. You're so freaking funny. And he's like, "I believe in you." He's like, "I don't believe in a lot of people, but you, I believe in." Like, he's like, "So please put all this stuff out." And so one day, just to get him off my back, I opened a TikTok account, kind of. I was like, and I told you, I say yes to everything, but why wasn't I saying yes to Tahran, who really loves me and cares for me? So I was like, "Okay, yes, Tahran for you." I put it out, and literally, I think it was like my second or third video went viral. And it was like, it's just, I think, Leila, I think when you're your authentic self and people feel it and people gravitate towards it, they can feel like, oh, this person is just being exactly who they are. And people want to see more people being honest and upfront on social media. Yeah, we follow those people who kind of are, faking it or whatever it is. And that's fine. Like you said, I had to fake it to make it in some areas, like in stand-up comedy. I was like, yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian. Not really, but okay. Um, but I think people really like my authenticity and how I kind of speak to everyone, you know? I don't showcase a lot of the fancy schmancy stuff in my life because I feel like other people do that. For me, it's all about showcasing things that I want to promote, you know, which is laughter, which is loving themselves, you know, things like that are so important. And I think that's what gravitated people towards my account, and that's what keeps them coming.
And if you, as you've continued to grow that account, have you prioritized building a team? Do you have like representation? Have you looked for representation?
No, that's the other thing I told you is I realized I'm not a content creator and I'm not an influencer. I'm definitely not an influencer. I don't know how to influence you people. Like, I don't need to. I want everyone to be themselves. You shouldn't be influenced at all. There's certain products like I'll love and I'll be like, hey, I really love this shirt. If you want to get it, get it. If you don't, you know. But I think that no one should be influenced. You should all live your, like I said, your authentic lives. But no, the only thing I really wanted was acting agent, and I have one, thank God. So that's all I ever wanted.
Yep.
That's all I ever have. I actually build that platform all by myself. It's all me.
And how do acting agents work? Is it the same as social agents? Like they find you work and take a 20 or 30%? Same thing?
Yeah, they take like 10 to 15%, sometimes 20, depending on the agent. And they find you acting jobs that are outside of what you can find on, you know, on the internet. So it's really cool. It's very important. If you want to be a respectable actor, you need an acting agent, a theatrical agent.
Have you found that you being like محجبة and like kind of not being a typical LA actress, you know, who moved from some corn farm in Ohio to kind of make it here. Have you found that it's given you more work or less?
No, definitely less. I mean, there's a lot of jobs I cannot apply for. And that's the one thing that I spoke to my agent about. I was like, okay, look, every time there's like a job for like a funny neighbor, please just put my name out there as well.
Huh.
I can be the funny neighbor. You know what I mean? I know it doesn't say hijabi or Muslim or Arab or Middle Eastern, but I can be that funny neighbor as well, you know? And that's the one thing why I do acting is to normalize women who look like me. It's so, and I mean, that's one thing we didn't talk about is why do I love acting and why do I do it? Yes, there's the fantasy aspect, but also, I truly believe 100% that entertainment is the way to change the world nowadays. Nobody listens to politicians anymore. We all think they're crackpots. Nobody listens to religious leaders anymore. It's all about entertainment. I mean, our freaking president, Donald Trump, was an entertainer. That's how he got.
Yeah, truly. No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. He certainly was, and you are right that like the normalization ends up falling on our shoulders. Right? It's funny that you know Hollywood can't reconcile the idea of a neighbor and a hijabi neighbor. It's like maybe you can be both things, and it's not that big of a deal.
Exactly, which is what I'm trying to do. I mean, I got an audition the other day for like a boardroom person, and I was so excited. I was in Pakistan, and I was like, I'm going to do this audition, you guys. It's for a boardroom person. It doesn't say Muslim or hijabi, you know? And I love that my agent always sends me in. He's awesome. And then these producers were like, oh, okay, we can see her in a boardroom. Let's do that, you know?
Huh.
For them to even acknowledge that is a massive step, which people don't realize, but it
No, it's
is.
huge. It's huge. As a woman who like sees the boardroom side of things, people always struggle and are trying to even make me more of like a Muslim influencer or Muslim content creator. I'm like, I'm Muslim, but that's like not my thing, right? Like I wouldn't come running to me for religious advice. I respect the people who do that, but that is certainly not my place, right? And so I think that kind of showing that you know, you could be more than just not a terrorist and Muslim. And it's funny that we're having these elementary conversations, but it's a thing. The fact that somebody was like, oh, yeah, sure, she could be in a boardroom and look like that. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty plausible. You know, it's believable.
And for the casting agents to be like, yeah, why not? Yeah, we can have a woman with a hijab in the boardroom. I mean, that's just a massive step for them. And those are the steps. I mean, yeah, I didn't get it, which is okay, but at least I'm taking those steps now, you know? And that
Right.
makes me so happy.
And how have you reconciled? So you mentioned you have kids. love your kids, obviously. But for those who don't know your kids, how have you reconciled this coming of self and figuring out comedy, figuring out your boundaries? Like a big thing for comics and actors and actresses are boundaries, right? And you have to figure out what they are, figuring out who you can present on a public screen. How did you navigate that against raising kids and teaching them whatever values you want to teach them for them to end up a certain way, right?
I'm a very open and honest mom. I discuss everything with my children. I tell them exactly how I'm feeling. Like, for instance, in the movie that I did in Michigan, there was a kissing scene, and I was talking to my husband, and it was at dinner time. So the kids are there as well. And I was like, hey, there's a kissing scene. I'm going to reach out to the director and be like, I don't do this, which, doctor was so awesome. She's like, oh my God, of course. I was going to tell you about that. And so the kids are always there to hear these open and honest conversations. And as a mother, my teaching is I want them to live their lives without generational trauma. And I don't want to be the cause of that. And I don't want the society I put them in. So I'm very self aware of that. We've even had discussions about religion. I've told them that, yeah, mommy's Muslim, but it doesn't mean you have to be Muslim. If you grow up and you want to do research on other religions and you want to research your own religion, which is so vital. I think people are born into a religion and they're like, this is the religion I am because mama and baba are this religion, Bibi and Jiddu are this. But I'm like, you need to do more research. And just me putting these little seeds in their head really really helps them fall in love in not just me, but in the person that they are becoming. So, like, for instance, my parents are very big on let your kids learn Arabic, let your kids learn about religion. I'm not big on that. I'm like, you're going to learn on your own, and I want you to learn in your due time. Because for me, some of the best Muslims are converts, or reverts, excuse me. I feel like they're so much more educated than me. They're so much more in tune with the religion than I am. And I was all like, this is the way that I want my children to learn my religion or a religion. And for instance, my son Laith, who is now 13, he is now learning Arabic on Duolingo. It's so important for him. The other day he was all like, Mama, I'm gonna learn how to pray. I was like, cool, do you want me to teach you? He's like, I'm gonna go online and learn. I think that'll be better for me, so that I can learn. I was like, that's awesome, Nate. Keep at it. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want to be that parent who was like, select, so it. No, that's never who I wanted to be. I wanted to grow into themselves and love what they chose for themselves.
And definitely that, like, develops a sense of agency, right? Because he's clearly choosing it and that's who he wants to be.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that perspective. I think it's really interesting as somebody public facing, because at home as parents, we are, present certain parts of our identity to our children. But when we have a public image, they're able to go and research other parts of our identity very openly, right? So it's kind of like you have to be able to bridge the gap for them. And I fall in a similar place where my kids are going to be able to Google a lot of things about me. And it has to be aligned with what I want for them, right? One thing I would love to talk about, I'm assuming you're open about it because you talk about it on your TikTok, is mental health. That's
Yes.
another taboo. I think culturally that isn't necessarily always explored or discussed. And on your TikTok, I think that there are some things that you do that are just like so cool. You say, okay, I'm a comic, I'm an actress, but also like you had a long video when you were going through a bout of depression, right? What made it important for you to put that online? And do you find that it's been more helpful or less helpful as you work through some of these things?
Um, I really wanted for people to connect with the mental health aspect that goes on within our culture that not a lot of people talk about. It's so taboo. And I felt like no one really talks about it, not any of the big content creators and influencers. They kind of say today's a sad day because I didn't get to do this. But for me, it was like, you know what? Today I've been having 2 weeks of major depression and it's hard to get out of bed. And I don't know why, because I feel like I should be happy, but I don't know what's going on with me. And so I thought I think it's so vital and important to talk about it because I think Arabs, particular Muslims, it's kind of like we brush it under the rug. Any sort of mental health, be it depression, be it anxiety, even like stuff like that's more major, like autism. I remember there was a kid and she was clearly autistic, And her parents are kind of like, oh, she's just like Jose. She's like a mess. She's just like, oh. I'm like, why can't you say, yeah, she's autistic and I think it's beautiful and we're working on it and we're trying. Um, Also, I wanted to showcase more about, and I haven't talked about this, is going to therapy, which is so vital and important for people. Taking medication. I think a lot of people think medication is so evil. I take medication every single day now for like, I don't know, 5, 6 years for my anxiety that I've battled with for a long time. Um, and so I just kind of I wanted people to know that, hey, everyone goes through this, even me, even though I'm so funny and I seem to have it all and I'm laughing all the time. But there are days where I don't want to laugh, where I just want to stay in bed.
No, it definitely does make it feel less alone. I've certainly been depressed before. And when you're going through it, you think you're the only person in the world who's feeling these feelings, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know when you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think it's admirable, and comes back to this kind of theme of yours, which is just very open and very transparent, which I love. I think it's a really, really cool thing. And as you've progressed throughout this journey, where do you hope it'll take you? Like, what do you hope is next for Zain?
Well, Zayn is working on her own TV show with a couple of writers. Yay! So
Awesome.
we've been developing this TV show now for many months. I want to say that it's been in the works for me for almost 2 years. Um, I kind of am battling with a little bit of imposter syndrome. I think a lot of us like battle with that. So I'm kind of like, who am I to have a TV show? Who the hell am I to do? But I'm like, dude, just freaking do it. So this past year, that's when I like pulled the band-aid and I got the writers together. We've got a producer who's an amazing big producer. And actually, just this week, we kind of finished the big pitch deck. And so we're ready to put it out there and to try to sell it. And I'm so like excited. Oh my God, she's so beautiful. And I'm
I
so
didn't lock the door. But go ahead. Hey, Cam,
we're
welcome to my podcast.
she's so gorgeous. And so I'm just so excited about that. That's Zane's next step. I realized is that I'm such an odd character. It's hard to put me into a show. So why don't I make my own freaking show? You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
if no one is gonna give me that part, then I need to make that part, girl. I need to do that for myself. And so that's what I've been working on. And it's been a wonderful adventure.
It's so amazing, and this is a time for it, and we're seeing that, right? We're seeing that left and right, where people are like, no, I'm just going to be my whole personality is not being a terrorist, right? Like, I
Yeah,
have more to me
exactly.
than that, so I'm going to do more than that. And in terms of figuring out the ropes, has it been easy to figure out how to make a show?
I've been learning. So that's one thing is I tell people like I studied English lit, right? But I'm not a script writer. So I hired script writers. A lot of my friends who are comedians, they write their own scripts. They're like, yeah, we can do it. But I was like, no, I feel like I need a professionals. I need someone who's been doing this for a couple of years to really look at this. So I hire people. If I don't know, I hire them, I pay them. I'm lucky enough that I'm able to do that. I know not everybody can do that, but I'm lucky enough and blessed enough that I can take that, little amount of coins that I've made on my social media and put it into something like that that is so valuable. So that's what I've been doing. And I do a lot of research, of course. I do all that. I recently went to some sort of convention that talked about, something like that, which I thought was so important. So I am always educating myself as well. And I'm still learning, Leila. Don't get me wrong. I finished this aspect. Like, how would I know what a freaking pitch deck is? Now I know. Now I can tell you if you want to put a pitch deck together, hey, I got you. But now I'm on to this whole new venture where I'm trying to sell this show. And that's going to be something so different and so scary. And I'm so hella excited about it. At the same time, it's very daunting. But that's where I'm going to learn through there. And you only learn through your mistakes and through going through it, right?
I love the themes that are recurring. It's just a lot of humility, a lot of like learning from the ground up, stand-up
Yes.
comedy, acting, writing a script, scaling a show. They're very different skills, right? And they're skills that you're like, bring it on, I'll figure it out. And I'm excited. I will certainly be rooting for you and watching whatever it is that comes out. And for those who want to follow your journey, Zain, where can people find you?
So Zain Comedy, one word, Zain Comedy. You can follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. And hopefully by early next year, my movie should be coming out. It's called Pomegranate. We're still looking at platforms. That is not my show or movie, so it's they're deciding with that. But we filmed it for about a month, and that should come out on a major platform soon. And once it does, I'll announce it on my social media, and I'm really excited about that too.
I'm excited too. I cannot wait to watch it. It's been so cool to see the evolution of Zain. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Zain.
Thank you so much, Layla, for having me. I appreciate you.